Welcome back, Patreon family. I'm aware this video may be something a little bit different and it may not be to everyone's taste, but I thought it would be a great opportunity to give you a little sneak peek behind the scenes and get to know me a little bit better. So, as many of you know, my name is John and I'm in my mid-30s. I grew up in Yorkshire, which is a fairly rural county in the north of England. I had a really great upbringing from a loving working class family, and I have an older brother and a younger sister. So yes, I am the middle child. Growing up, my mother worked as a cleaner and my father as an injection mold technician, which basically is a fancy way of saying he worked with machines which made plastic bins and boxes. At school, I was a very cheeky chap, always pulling pranks and telling jokes. And I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial in nature from a very young age. I actually used to be the kid that would wake up early, go to the shops, buy loads of cheap sweets and sell them on the playground for a small profit. I had a really great time, but I never really knew what opportunities existed out there due to my parents' lack of experience in the higher educational realm. Because of this, after I finished school, I went to what we call in the UK college to study carpentry and joinery, which is basically woodwork. Now, this was partially due to the fact that I did feel some pressure from my mother, who I was living with at the time, to start earning and paying my way in terms of rent. As a low-income family, my mother would receive financial support from the government for me and my siblings up until the age of 18. So after qualifying, I began my career as a joiner. And basically that's, working on building sites and doing everything from erecting roofs to hanging doors. And this was actually really fun. You meet all kinds of characters on building sites and you need to have both banter and thick skin in order to fit in, and that worked perfectly for me. A real turning point happened in my life when I was in my early 20s and I was dating a girl who had ambitions of going to university, or what you would call college in the US. My biggest misconception with university is that I thought your parents had to essentially bar your way in, and thus I thought it was outside of my scope. I soon realized that this was not the case, and such things as student loans exist, which gave me my entry point. Going straight into a carpentry and joinery course after I finished school meant that I never really got the qualifications required to go to university. But that was certainly not a deterrent. In my mid-20s, I took the decision to quit my job as a carpenter and work part-time in retail so I could simultaneously gain the qualifications required to get myself into university. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a real struggle, but it was certainly worth it. A year of hard work later, I had what I needed and got accepted to study computer science for 4 years, including an industrial year, which is basically an internship within the industry. Fortunately for me, the student loan system in the UK, and more importantly, the associated grants, were actually based on a student's parents' combined income. And this resulted in me receiving the maximum grant possible. And don't get me wrong, I did enjoy some of this money, but a large portion of these grants were actually later invested. I jumped into the degree headfirst and learnt a lot about programming, user interfaces, visualizations, artificial intelligence, neural networks, and so much more. During my 1-year internship, I actually managed to secure a spot working for a company which leased software to the regional fire service, developing life-saving software used in the fire engines to map the most efficient routes and identify fire hydrants in the local area. I do actually have a funny story here to share with you. So the holiday booking system we used during that internship was actually developed and hosted internally. And I discovered that we had access to the database which contained all of the related information. I already received a generous 8 weeks paid holiday during this internship, but with a couple of modifications to the data, I was able to boost that to 10 weeks, so don't tell anyone about that. Now, throughout my university journey, I became increasingly involved with the Snow Sports Society, something which I, again, thought was out of my grasp and reserved for those with a lot of disposable income. This was the highlight for me, and I met so many great friends and really evolved as a person. I became somewhat prominent within the society, and so much so that I actually became the president, and I was responsible for taking hundreds of students to the French Alps for some absolutely incredible trips. As a leading proponent of the society, I would often host some of the best house parties in the area, and this is where I was introduced to cryptocurrency, and more specifically, everyone's favorite, Bitcoin. Now, I'm a curious guy, and I was talking with an individual from this party who would supply others with items that they found hard to get. I was intrigued as to how he would actually obtain such items online in what he believed would be an anonymous manner. Now, the business he was running was no interest to me, but as a software developer, I was extremely intrigued with the technology behind Bitcoin. So I did a little bit of digging and a little bit of research to get a better understanding. And this leads me to 2017, when I first started using some of the student loan grants I received over the years to invest in digital assets, and more specifically, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and most notably, XRP. I was really fortunate to have got in before the 2017 bull run actually started. Later that year, I actually graduated and was employed by a global company as a full-stack developer to help develop a web application which helped manage the company's finance and assist with workflow efficiency. Now, during this time, I thought I was the next Warren Buffett. My portfolio skyrocketed, and here I was with my moon boy mentality of never selling because in a year's time, I will become a millionaire. How wrong was I? Well, a lot was learned that year and the subsequent years as I held and rode the portfolio back to the initial starting amount. I actually feel pretty grateful because it could have been much worse. Throughout the following years, at the age of around 30, I delved deeper and deeper into the blockchain rabbit hole. I found it absolutely fascinating, and I still do to this very day. Despite things going really well in my job and being promoted to one of the lead developers for an Adobe Illustrator automation tool, I really wanted to follow my passion. I wanted to do something associated with blockchain. So towards the back end of 2020, and with XRP still representing a very large percentage of my portfolio, I became more and more familiar with the Flare network as the snapshot approached. As I went over the various white papers multiple times, I became increasingly impressed with the potential of the Flare network. On January the 1st, 2021, last year, I decided to take a step into the unknown and created the Flare Community Twitter account, and 4 days later, the Flare Community YouTube account. All with the ambition of becoming the very first content creator dedicated to all things Flare. Now, I'm actually quite a visual learner, and I wanted to bring something fresh to the space in terms of animated videos. For me, it's about putting out information in the most digestible way possible, which often requires visual cues. I was blessed to hit the ground running, and the channel and Twitter account really took off. and I really do attribute much of the initial growth to the support of numerous prominent influencers in the space who highlighted my work. I have no doubt that if they were not so helpful in bringing the exposure to the channel, I would not be here where I am today. So for that reason, I am eternally grateful. I actually remember my first video very well. Amateurish with my editing style and anxious of the very small audience response, I put on my extremely cheap work-provided headset and hit the record button. Now, the following months were very demanding, working full-time as a software developer and dedicating an equal amount of time about learning and creating content surrounding the Flare network. Now, if we fast forward half a year to mid-2021, and the community has grown massively, and I received an enormous amount of support. So much so that the YouTube revenue generated from memberships at this point have given me the option to take a step into the unknown as a full-time content creator. By no means did this match my salary, far from it, but it was something I enjoyed much more. The idea of working for myself has been a dream of mine for a very long time, and it was a growing possibility. A day in mid-July was, hopefully, the last day I worked for anyone else but myself as I handed in my notice. Now, since going full-time, we've expanded into Discord and built an amazing community there too. We've learned about so many of the revolutionary protocols coming to Flare, and most importantly to me, I've met some incredible people along the way. And that's where we are today. I'm extremely humbled to be in such a position and have helped introduce so many people to the Flare network. Teaching and educating people is a real passion of mine, and it's great to have such enormous support and to be able to do this full-time. As a member of the Patreon family, I am forever indebted to you because it's you guys that really make this possible. It seems that we have lots to look forward to, and I couldn't be more excited about the future of how the Flare network will inevitably change the crypto game forever by connecting everything. So that basically concludes my Patreon exclusive, a little bit about myself and my story. I appreciate that this video is not my usual style, but I thought it would be a great opportunity to open up and give you a little bit more of an insight about myself. As always, you are all incredible. Thank you so much for the support, and until next time, I'm out.
Mission Control, we have liftoff.